Hey, you guys, it's your girl Ashley Tamar, and I'm on School of Hollywood.
Hi, I'm Steve Owens of School of Hollywood, and like to remind you of School of Hollywood podcast is everywhere. Tell your friends where you love to listen to it, and invite 5 of your entertainment friends to it. Very excited to have Ashley Tamar Davis with us today. Ashley, how are you?
I am good. I'm a little sleepy, coming from off a flight, but I'm good.
Great. So you started in the business at a very young age in a girls group called Time. Tell us about that experience.
Yeah, I was in a group called Girls Time that later became known as Destiny's Child. And we were young, like 9, 10, and 11, and we were typical girls, slumber parties. We did Star Search. There's footage floating around of that. We did, back in that time, we did a lot of conventions, expos and performances at pageants. But we were typical girls from Houston, Texas. There was 6 of us: Beyonce, Kelley, me, Latavia, and then Nikki and Nina were our dancers. And I mean, that was my first time recording in a studio, getting on a plane and recording with other girls and honing my craft with like hearing notes and staying on my notes. So it was a good time. It was a good time.
But you didn't continue with Destiny's Child. What happened there? Was it conflict of the girls or something?
No, just managerial, just a lot of conflict of interest. It was just a lot of back and forth with who would manage the group after Ann Tillman died. She was our manager, and I believe she passed of lupus. And it was just a lot of back and forth about who's going to take control of the group and the fairness of it. It was just too much back and forth. The girls had nothing to do with it. It was really just the parents going back and forth and trying to find a middle ground. And it just was too one-sided. And so my parents decided to take me out, and I continued my education and went on to go to high school for the Performing and Visual Arts, and then ended up going to University of Southern California, Thornton School of Music.
Fantastic. You're also a Grammy-nominated artist. What was that for?
Nominated for a duet that I wrote and performed with Prince Rogers Nelson. It's called Prince Rogers Nelson, Beautiful, Loved, and Blessed. And that story was just like, we would be here for days talking about that, but we were well into recording his album for 3121. And I actually walked into the studio. We were in Minneapolis, and I walked into Paisley Park, and Kirk was in there. His former drummer was playing a drum loop, and Prince was like, "Do you like it?" I said, "Yeah." He was like, "Do you hear anything that you could write to it?" And we were in Studio A, the big studio, and I just kind of started humming a melody and ended up putting words, beautiful, loved, and blessed. And from there, he was like, "Do you want to write it?" And I said, "Okay." And long story short, I was in Studio B, and I forego snacks and lunch and dinner to get the perfect lyrics. And Prince would come and check on me and hear the lyrics. And he challenged me to go deeper in thought with the lyrics. And finally, when he heard my verse, he was just like, "That's it." He was like, "Let's go record it." And then the very next day, I walk in the studio, and he's in the booth and recording the song. Well, I take that back. He was in the console room, and he says, "I want this song for my album." And I was like, "No, you're not." You know what I mean? I was like, "You got to pay me." And, we had a whole falling out. And finally he said, "Well, what will it take for me to have this song on my album?" I said, "Well, listen, give me my royalties, and I want to hear your verse." And he was like, "Would you want to record me?" Because at that time, I was kind of recording beginning of my album, Milk and Honey. And because I went to USC, shout out to the Trojans, I knew how to record myself on that analog console. And so I was recording myself on my own project. And so he actually asked me to record his vocals. So he went into the booth, and he was like, "Do you like it in the low register and the high register?" And it was just an emotional moment, because I was like, am I literally audio engineering Prince's vocals on a song that I wrote? And he sang his verse in the upper register, and I was like, "Nah, don't like that one." And as soon as he sang his verse in his natural register, I just had tears rolling down my eyes. And that's how the song came to be. Yeah, we got nominated. We lost the category, but it was such an honor to be at that pre-telecast and see, Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis, to Ike Turner was alive at the time, and seeing all the engineers and the people who really make the albums and the records come to life. And that actually was the initiation to what I really wanted to do long term, was just being in that room with all of those behind the scenes icons. So, yeah.
That is awesome. Did you ever get a chance to work with Andre Simone, his cousin?
Oh my gosh. So let me tell you. Okay, so I'm an 80s baby. We didn't we weren't raised on Prince. I heard more Barbara Streisand, Sting, AC/DC, Whitney Houston, Tower Power. That's what we heard in my house. Gospel, a lot of gospel. And so Prince, my story of knowing Prince and anyone who worked with him was very minimal, right? So I was really green once I joined and started working with him. And so Andre Simone and I met for the first time in 2019. And it wasn't until I got to Australia. No, was it Japan? I think it was Australia. And it was Australia. It was the Byron's Bay Blues Fest. Here's this guy coming in. He's fly. He looks like Prince's little brother. Never knew who he was until way after we left Australia. And I was like, oh my God, that was Andre Simone, And I performed with him, not knowing who he was. His energy is by far just like, it just exudes out of his pores. I actually have photos in my phone of professional photographers taking photos of us. And it's a memory that I will never forget. And I like the fact that I didn't know who he was. Like, I just revered his gifts and his talent on stage, his musicianship. He was very cordial. His wife was cordial. I just was like, who is this guy? He's so cool. And then one day he started telling stories of like being in Prince's house as a child, but I never put two and two that they were relatives until weeks later. And I was just like, oh my gosh, that was Andre Simone, but he's like one of my favorites. He's one of my favorites.
Well, I actually got an opportunity we produced a record together. We did a remake actually, we were trying to find the right singer for it on redoing Looking for a New Love, the Jody Watley record. And,
I'm looking for I love that song.
And you were bringing up the fact of the Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis, that sound, it still continues on today, with the 808s and 909s. And it's one of those things that you just go, yes, 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 yes. I want to feel that. I want to feel that beating kind of thing. Let's go back to the studio for a minute. What is your favorite board to work on? And what's your favorite mic you love to sing on?
So I'm a Neumann in the studio. I forgot what number it is, what series it is, but I actually am sponsored by Earthworks Audio. So I love their 2 microphones. But I also love Sennheiser. It's one of my favorites live. And then the boards, I don't know the board that I worked on at Paisley Park. I would have to find that out, but it was so massive. It was I brought my college education to the table because it literally looked like the same board from USC. So I would have to find out what name of that board is. Now I do everything Pro Tools, of course, and Logic. But at the time it was an analog. It was just, old school tape, everything, I was taping, like putting the tape on the machine and, but I have to find out what board that was actually.
Actually, you've got a new album that's coming out, and not only are you releasing a regular digital, but you also have 200 limited editions. So you're actually going back to those analog days. And what's interesting is a lot of the recording studios are getting rejuvenated with that sound that you can't get with the current Pro Tools. I'm a Pro Tool fan, so I play with it all the time. But having that console, mixing it through there with the Pro Tools, there's a certain warmness that you don't get with the strict digital. Would you agree?
I totally agree. It's something gritty about it. Even when I listen to new records and I applaud all artistry and all artists, but when it comes to the monotone and the actual post-production, it just makes me cringe. So I like the rawness of what vinyl brings. And I don't even think tape, cassette tapes do it. Vinyl has a rawness to it that I just feel like it doesn't dumb down my natural quality and tone and timbre of my voice. So nothing compares to vinyl. I cannot wait to get a vinyl in my hands and just play it on a record player. Like, I don't know what I'm going to do when I listen to it for the first time.
Yeah, actually, I was gifted a couple vinyls, and it turns out one of them is actually now worth about $500, not even a year later.
Wow.
So it is a hot trend right now with the vinyl. And I see that you're going to be going out on the road with Stuart Copelson, and I have a great story behind that. There was a senior vice president of of A&M Records named Charlie Miner. He unfortunately has passed away. He was the senior VP of A&M Records, and he sent me an advance copy. Said, you can't play this. You can't play this. And I'm like, you're going to send me something. I'm going to play it. So it was Every Breath You Take. And I was one of the very first in the United States to actually play it on the radio when I was programming radio. And from that, I received a platinum album for the record. So are you going to be singing any of the Police tracks when you're out on the road with Stuart?
It's all Police, baby. Like Every Breath You Take, every little thing she does is magic. We're doing Demolition Man. We're doing, oh my gosh, I have the sheet music right here. We're doing Walking in Your Footsteps, Roxanne, One World Is Enough, Bed's Too Big Without You. We're doing it all. So it's with the orchestra. We start with San Diego Orchestra. I think Cleveland is already there. I'm like on cloud nine. I cannot wait to meet Stuart and the whole team. Like, I'm excited. It's great.
Yeah. Are they going to show any kind of video clips in the background? Because every time I think of Roxanne, I go back to the scene with Eddie Murphy and Nick Nolte in the movie as he's singing it in jail and driving everybody crazy off key.
Yeah. I think we're definitely going to have a lot of behind the scenes. I know they're going to do a lot of social media, so that's going to be cool. But yeah, it's like, from Prince to Stuart Copeland. I don't know. I don't know how to feel yet.
Well, you have been very successful within the music business, but I heard you actually had to be pushed by Tyler Perry to be on The Voice. Is that true?
So true. Mr. Perry talked to me about that for years. And I just kept saying, Mr. Perry, I was nervous. People don't know that I'm very shy. So when it comes to competition, I'm the one that's like, I don't want to do it. I would rather opt out because I know there's always going to be people better and people, whatever. I just feel like when you have such true gifts for anyone, I don't feel like there's a scale that you can rate it on, And so I just rather not hear an 8 or a 10 or a 2 or a 5 and just, keep honing in my craft and to feel like I have to get better because I got an 8. Or I need to be better than a 10 because I got a 10. Like, it's a psychological thing that I put myself through. And finally, I was on the road with Motown, the musical, the Broadway show, and I got a call. I actually was in San Diego, ironically. And the call came in like, hey, Mr. Perry really wants to see you on the show. How can we help you? And that's how it happened. Wow. So yeah, he had to give me the push.
So I heard that he also came and watched you on the show.
He did. It was such a shock because I didn't know. And I walked down the runway and there he was. And I was just like, I kept saying, what are you doing here? What are you doing here? So that, and I look back at the footage and I'm like, really? Mr. Perry came to see me, do this show. I'm speechless. I've been very fortunate and blessed to persevere in this industry because there's been moments where I just didn't care, and so it's great to see those landmarks happen in your life and they give you that jolt of confidence and assurance and confirmation. And that was one of those moments for me.
Who have been some of your mentors in the business? Obviously Prince and now Tyler Perry, but has there been anybody else? And what advice would you say they gave you that really has stuck in your brain?
It's crazy. I never had the sit down conversations advice, right? It really starts with my parents. My parents, to this day, they're my go-tos for anything. If I'm going through anything, they're the ones that are going to give me that sound advice. So I would have to always say my parents, but I tell a lot of people the unsung heroes are my teachers from school. To this day, Patricia Bonner, Carol Nelson, Rob Seibel from high school. USC was Chris Sampson. To this day, I do a lot of projects with Chris Sampson. Now I'm working with Don Solaire at ABC, who mentored me into music supervision. So those to me have been my mentors. I would say the biggest thing that I've learned is you just have to really be prepared at all times, and don't ever feel like you can't do something just because you may not know the details. Just say like, hey, I may not know it, but I'll learn it, and really stick to your word is one of the biggest things that I've seen in all of them, whether it was an audition, knowing my music by heart and making sure I was rehearsing. Or with Prince was one of those people that said all the time, live music will never die. When this social media stuff picks up, the real true artists that will stand the test of time are those that can perform live. And he was absolutely right. He was the one that made sure that my original music was just as funky as the classics, from Rufus and Shaka to the Funkadelics, right? He
Mm-hmm.
didn't, people felt like Prince was a perfectionist, but I don't think he was a perfectionist more so than a genius, in the respect of, if you revered something, then you should use that as your threshold of how good you want your music to be. It was just very interesting. Prince would just talk, and you just had to tap into, okay, he's teaching something. It wasn't like, hey, take out a pen and learn this. He took me to his meetings when he negotiated. He showed me how he negotiated, why he negotiated the way he did. And he didn't do it on behalf of himself. And that's the biggest thing that I learned from all my mentors. They never did things for themselves. It really was for people coming after them. And so that's what I do, even with my initiatives, Siren Arts Academy, the College Career and Empowerment Summit, with my workbook and my book and the creative master classes that I teach now. Like, I don't sugarcoat anything. I'm going to be brutal and honest. And I learned that from my mentors. And I feel like it's really sustained me a lot,
One of the things that we run into in Hollywood, and part of the reason the School of Hollywood, is to actually set people on the right path. And one of the things that I always tell singers is you need to get the proper training. And that is get a vocal coach, start to work with them. So, when you go in the studio, you're not spending thousands of dollars on retake. Learn the techniques. Did you have a particular vocal coach that you love to work with, or is that one of the things you're actually doing now?
So I, hands down, have two strong vocal coaches that I have to give all props to. Well, three. David Brewer, who started with the group Girls Time, Destiny's Child. He was my first introduction to opera and seeing a Black man in opera. My training started in opera. I hated going to voice lessons at the time, though. But then it wasn't until I started working with Seth Riggs is where my vocals started to expand into my upper register. I really started to master the connection from the lower register to the upper register. And then I'm forever grateful for Vicky Muto from USC. I mean, my voice just got stronger and stronger with her. And the craft is you can't just think, oh, I'm just going to be a singer. There's a presence about it. There's a storyline to every song. There's something that comes from inside that exudes to the outside. Like some people call it the it factor, but I call it like really knowing your story so it gets across. And then I'm a theater. I did a lot of theater, so I had to break that fourth wall a lot with theater, as far as like getting outside of myself and getting into that character. So I feel like that's another thing that I feel a lot of singers should really do, is take a lot of acting classes. And it amazes me when I do my creative classes, a lot of the high school kids today or young adults, they don't even consider it. And I'm like, do you know singing and theater are like interchangeable, So, but yeah, I would give props to those three strong vocal teachers.
Yeah, Seth Riggs and his daughter, I've sent, I can't tell you how many people I've sent to. Because in my opinion, he's the best in the business. And, they what people have gone in and what they came out with has just been phenomenal as far as work. Where can people find you on social media?
Yeah, it's Ashley Tamar Music on Instagram. But if you go to my Instagram, my link tree is there. So it has like my website. When in doubt, you can always Google AshleyTamar.com and everything is on there. My link tree, my IMDb, Twitter, you name it. It's all on there.
Well, Ashley, I want to thank you for coming on School of Hollywood today. And I know you just got off a plane, and it's been wonderful talking with you, and look forward to hearing your new music that is coming out around the corner here. What's the name of the album?
It's called My Name is Ashley. And by the way, some of the songs are an ode to the 80s, 90s Minneapolis sounds. I cannot wait for you to hear them. Like, Woo. Seriously. Yeah, no, we took some of those sounds and brought them to life. We have Mononeon on the project with Jellybean, Jellybean Johnson from the original MPG, and Flight Time, Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis. We have Jason Moran, Eric Harland, Mark Kelley. So it's a real musician's record. I have to be very honest this time around. So yeah.
Fantastic. I look forward to listening to it. And once again, Thank you for being on the School of Hollywood.